Hey everyone, how you doing today? Episode 3 with Greg Dickerson. How you doing, sir?
Doing great, Michael.
Awesome. So hey, something I know I wanted to do with you today, if we can, is sort of throw some concepts at you, just get your feeling what's coming on, what's top of radar or whatnot. So I'll just throw some words and you let me know. First, we'll throw deflation, right? The big Uber boogeyman out there, right? There's a lot of talk about inflation, which in fairness, we'll talk about next. But when you think about deflation, is that anywhere on your radar in the future? What do you think?
I don't really think so, especially in the environment we're in with all of the, QE, quantitative easing, just where we're at. I mean, we almost kind of sort of been there because we haven't had the inflation that we should have had, but no, I don't see that as a primary concern.
Yeah, I think back to our episode number 1 or 2, I forget where we said don't bet against the Fed. I think deflation is hard to see in the current environment. Yeah, it's hard to comprehend. So okay, well, what about the
Yeah,
other
I don't
side?
see us heading into a depression. I mean,
Yeah,
this is a serious issue we've got, but as we've seen, the economy has remained 70% open, resilient. The support is there from all of the central banks, European banks, the Fed. Everybody is on board to do whatever it takes to keep the world economy going. I don't see a great depression on the table and possible unless this pandemic got way out of control and you had to shut everything down completely.
yeah, if they lock everybody down in their homes for like a month or whatever and just really kill the economy, that could happen. But knock on wood, that won't happen. So yeah, I agree. It's hard to see a deflation. That was really when I went back, which I did months ago, to read about the depression, Great Depression.
Yeah.
Deflation was the thing, right? That's the thing that kept
Hmm.
where you actually had money in the bank and it was worth more the next day, right? Because things were deflating. So let's
Yeah.
flip the coin over. What about inflation, right? That's been the great dream of Federal Reserve. They now want 2%. They are printing money like nobody's business. There's trillions of dollars of dry powder. Is inflation on your radar going forward?
Oh yeah, and we absolutely have it. You've got it at the asset level: Bitcoin, gold, stocks, bonds, everything at the asset level. You've got hyperinflation, except for treasuries,
Mm-hmm.
and really bonds. You're not seeing it there, but you're seeing it in risk assets. Okay, um, you're not seeing it at the consumer level now. Obviously, prices have gone up in the grocery store for goods and services, or for food and things like that, because of transportation issues, COVID issues, and all that. But in general, it's not across the board. I can still go buy a shirt on sale at Belk, or some pants or shoes, or whatever. You can still, vehicles, you could argue, over the last number of years have gone through the roof. But again, it's all about payments and financing. But in general, your day-to-day necessities have not exponentially shot through the roof at the consumer level for everything across the board. So to me, that's where inflation really hits home. The inflation is at the asset level where the money is going. The money is not reaching Main Street. Now, if the Fed and Treasury would have gotten their act together and put the money where it really needed to be, which was shoring up these businesses, replacing lost income and lost profitability. Again, what we've seen with stimulus is life support that failed. It wasn't stimulus. Okay. It didn't, stimulate anything. It barely kept some people alive, and most people aren't. And once we get through the end of this year, we're going to see even more businesses close after the holidays.
Yeah.
So the real stimulus should have been replacing lost income, revenues, and profits. Then you could have potentially seen some inflation.
Yeah. Yeah, I think inflation you got to watch. I do think it's a boogeyman that at least needs to be on the radar of the Federal Reserve, Treasuries, us as investors. But it's not front and center, right? It's one of those ones you just keep on the board for that just in case kind of discussion because it
The money is not reaching the mass population. In
yeah
order for real inflation to take root, you need money to hit everybody's pocket. You need 0809, where everybody can refinance and pull equity out of a house
yeah
and put that money to work on anything. We're not seeing that. You got to qualify, you got to have equity. There's
Mhm.
limitations to be able to leverage yourself. People aren't over leveraging, people are going the other way.
Right.
They're putting money in savings, they're shoring up. When we get through this, people are going to, which we said on the last episode, make sure you've got reserves. People are going to build their reserves because they
Mhm.
now know that my income could disappear, and it could disappear for a long time. So, and a lot of people have lost their life savings and their businesses and things like that.
Yeah. So we did something else you said earlier. I want to tick off because I think we're in agreement again. So great depression is off the table now.
Yeah.
Would you go as far as to say that we could have a roaring decade, like the roaring 20s, or at least a roaring 2 or 3 years? Do you see what I see? And again, as always, tell me if I'm wrong. What I see coming up for the next 6 or 7 quarters is every quarter is better than the one preceding it. Like Q1 will be better than Q4. Q2 will be better than Q1. Q3 better than Q2. That may go on all the way out until, halfway through 2022. Is that kind of what you're thinking, or no?
It's really hard to say. I think we're going to see consistent growth once we get back open. So what are you measuring? Pre-pandemic growth, and I think that's what we're probably talking about. So once we get through this and the light switch is back on, and the world is firing again on
Mhm.
all cylinders, I think you're going to see steady growth. But you can only grow so much. There's only so many people in this world that are able to consume, and we are a consumption society. We're consuming goods and services, right? That's what our economy is. So when you think about that, it can only grow so much. And what is real growth? Is it increase in prices, or is it increase in productivity? You know, so that's really the thing to think about. You can only push so far. People only need so much.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, another thing you mentioned that we'll put in this episode is earlier when we talked about inflation of assets. You mentioned Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what do you think about Bitcoin? Is it a currency? Is it an asset? Is it just fake zeros and ones? What's Bitcoin to you?
To me, Bitcoin is two things: Monopoly meets Vegas, right? So it's a game. It's not even real. And it's something that, if anybody can come up and create a digital currency, how can one be more valuable than another? So you have Facebook wanting to create their own currency. Amazon's probably going to create their own currency. PayPal. The federal government's looking at creating a digital currency. I think Bitcoin's days are numbered. I think it's a bubble. I think there's a lot of people getting suckered into it because it's at 20,000. I don't even know what it is today, but it hit 20,000, and people are saying, oh, it could hit 100,000. I mean, it's just ridiculous. You can't take Bitcoin into the grocery store and buy food.
Yeah, so it hit 20,000 last Thursday, 23,000 on Friday. It was when I
Yeah.
started this, it was down $1,000 today. But yeah, you do have some pretty influential. What I see in Bitcoin is, so first off, step back. I have a friend of mine who's he's been all over digital currency for 5
Hmm.
years, right? He was very, very early. He's so deep in this stuff, it hurts my head just to talk to him, right? It, I mean, he's just that smart. 2017, he sat on my couch. He had this necklace on with like a little key fob. And he's like, this is the wave of the future. This is that. And you should buy some Bitcoin. It was like, I don't know, $3,000 or whatever it was. And I'm like, and then he leaves. And I look at my wife, Olivia, and I go, that's insane. What the hell is he doing? Right. So Bitcoin goes on 20,000 and then crashes. Now I actually bought a Bitcoin or a coin or whatever you call it, a little bit more than a coin, because I'm using it as an insurance policy. It's not an asset to me. It's not currency. I mean, it's certainly not currency, right? You can't take it to a grocery store. You might call it you might call it an asset. You might call it a replacement for gold. But for me, it's an insurance policy. I want 1% of my net worth at some point in the future in this insurance policy, right? If the world Armageddon comes and America loses reserve currency and all these other things, so I look at as the ultimate black swan insurance policy. So yeah, not definitely not a currency, right? You can't take it to the grocery store. So, but I do see 2020 very differently than '07, because the fear of missing out, that 17 crisis was so predictable, right? It was tulip bulbs.
Hmm.
It was Monopoly meets Vegas. But now we have Paul Tudor Jones, Druckenmiller, Elon Musk yesterday talked about it. We have this freaking Fortune 500 company who moved its 90% of its cash balance sheet to Bitcoin. It's just crazy stuff going on. So I think it warrant, for me, it's an insurance hedge. It's a very small insurance policy.
Yeah. I just don't buy it. I think it's gonna get wiped out and it'll be gone. And
Yep.
it's like the old thing that said, when everybody is all of a sudden investing in something that they know
Run.
nothing about.
Yeah.
Right now, it used to be, if your mailman, if your milkman, if those guys are telling you about Bitcoin or they have a real estate deal they're syndicating, it's probably time to get out.
Oh yeah.
Well, when you've got the top people in the world who are now on board, it's time to get out, because that's who they've been trying to sucker all along. Now they got them. They're
Aha.
going after the real wealth. So these guys are all going to put, their money in it, and
Family
that's when you're
offices
going
and
to.
all that. Yeah.
Now, my question is, when, where does it go? There's got to be, a little Bitcoin Fort Knox somewhere where it's all going to, and there's somebody back there like the wizard pulling the strings, that when this stuff evaporates, they end up with all the money. Because
Yeah.
I don't even understand that. How does it become worth nothing? Is it buying and selling like a market, and who's actually buying, who's selling, and what's happening?
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Because I guess there's only so many coins, so at some
yeah.
point somebody's going to end up with all those coins.
Yeah, that's one of the things that makes Bitcoin at least interesting to me when I was doing my research before I plugged down, tens of thousands of dollars, was that it is limited, right? There's a
Yeah,
limit. I think it's 21, it might be 23 million coins, I forget, something like that. But in the end, it's a topic. It's funny. You and I would have never talked about Bitcoin 60 days ago. It wasn't on my radar at all, right? Because for me, it was always that fake, I love your analogy, Monopoly meets Vegas. I thought that was awesome. Monopoly meets Vegas.
yeah.
But
Vegas, you're trading chips for real money,
yeah,
but when you're using it, it
it's
doesn't seem real.
it's all chips. Yeah, exactly,
Right.
exactly.
And Monopoly, it's all fake, right? So you just do whatever.
Exactly. I thought that was an awesome analogy, man. Oh, very, very cool. So, with that, man, I want to thank you. Again, you got off the freeway to do this video. I appreciate you. Drive safe, be well, and we'll talk next week. Merry Christmas.
Yeah. Yeah. You too, Michael. Merry Christmas.
Thanks, buddy.